Welcome to episode 4 of Under the Hive of Madness. I am Ryan the Goblin King, and I am joined by my co-hosts Marky.
What's up?
Beast.
Hello there.
And Kevin, who arrived by helicopter today.
Is that what that was?
Yep, that was the helicopter arriving. Yeah, we let him land on the roof. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about Warhammer stuff. Up to this point, we introduced some of the playable factions last episode to kind of give you guys an idea of what we were playing currently and why we were playing it and kind of what attracts us to it. But there's a much wider world to Warhammer 40k, and this is a pretty big, pretty expansive game. So, if this is your introduction, first off, sorry. But second off, we figured we'd introduce you to a little bit more of the playable factions and give you kind of that like old Warhammer guy at the table plan when you walk into the store feel for, some of the advice we might give for races.
Yeah, the way that I kind of looked at this episode is, when you're playing at a store and somebody goes, I've always thought about Warhammer. How do you know what kind of race to pick? What team to play for?
Yeah.
Cool. We're going to go over all that in this episode.
And then I literally just point to my arm and go, chaos.
Yeah, Ryan's definitely like, he's that creepy one that like when you walk into the game store and you're like watching someone play and you look at this dude and you're like, I want to ask these guys, but not him.
Yeah, and then you ask him and you're like,
and you're like, man, I'm really glad. I really wish I hadn't asked him.
Yeah, what do I play? And Ryan's just like, are you a bitch? And then you say no, and he's like, then chaos.
Yeah. So yeah. So with the launch of Indominus, we got two not new factions. We got a new faction and we got a refreshed faction. So in interests of kind of needing a place to kick it off, let's start there. So there's the Primaris faction in the Indominus set, and the Primaris Marines are kind of the new hotness in a way of Games Workshop. They're releasing a lot of new models. They've released a lot of new models over the last couple of years. A lot of them look, honestly, fucking amazing.
Yeah, their sculpts are amazing.
Their sculpts are
amazing.
Oh yeah, Age of Sigmar, like I feel like that like Warhammer, the GW meets at the table and they're like, all right, guys. Like, you're our artists team, right? Everybody's like, yeah, dude, we're the artist team. And then Games Workshop is like, all right, cool. So we've got these really cool tree people that we want to make, and then these demons that we want to make, right? And then we want you to make these like dragons riding on top of other dragons being controlled by dwarves. And all the artists are like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, that's sick. It's totally sick. And they're like,
it's like,
and then after you've pulled 7 80-hour weeks, and the artists are like, yeah, they're like, we want you to make some Warhammer 40k stuff. And the artists are like, all right, cool. No, I'm kidding. Sometimes I do feel like I see the new Age of Sigmar figures and I'm like, dude, how can I make those Warhammer 40k figures?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh dude, changing. I mean, that's why people call them Sigmarines.
Yeah, Sigmarines.
Because they're basically just Space Marines, but not. And you can easily convert them.
There is this company definitely employs some amazing artists.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so kind of focusing back on the new faction, the new hotness, the Primaris. So the Primaris have kind of an interesting play style and an interesting play place. If you like the idea of walking tanks and you like the idea of kind of slowly advancing across the field and just beating the crud out of your opponents. You're gonna probably start. You're probably gonna start at Primaris. Not only is that a good place to start because of that, but it's also a good place to start for lore. They're getting a lot of lore right now, a lot of lore updates right now, and we're seeing a lot of support for them now. I'm not
get all the love as far as lore.
Yeah, I'm not.
They're like the poster boy, so they get the most love.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Primaris, so Mark, I'm actually going to turn it over to you.
Mark.
How do the Primaris play, man?
So yeah, I don't want to get too much into like the meta wise. Like honestly, I wanted to more talk about like play styles and whatnot. And
yeah,
Space
exactly.
Marines
kind
are
of general feel.
Yeah, Space Marines are like very. If you're getting into this hobby and you don't know what you want to do and you can't decide, Space Marines are a very solid like faction to start with, just because everyone's very familiar with them. They are really strong. You can't go wrong with them. They're just generally they play very well, and they're always even like kind of speaking meta wise, they've always kind of been like mid to high tier. Like you can't, they're the poster child. Why would they make them bad in the game of 40k?
Anytime.
Kind of to jump in, we're talking about Primaris and Space Marines kind of in the same bucket. You can still play both Firstborn and Primaris.
Yeah, Firstborn Marines got the buff to 2 wounds, so they're just as viable. They're just the weapon loadouts are slightly different, and it's a slightly different tool for a slightly different job.
Yeah, I mean they might as well be a new faction because they do have a different style versus like Firstborn Marines. Firstborn being like little mini Marines, and they they get new sculpts. They're awesome. They've been getting a lot of love for the past few year, 2 years.
It's like year. Like basically the end of 8th, the beginning of 9th has been a lot of Primaris
basically just been getting slow rolled, and they've been getting new models. So I mean, if you're starting a Primaris force, now's the time. Yeah. They get a lot of love.
Yeah, there is. I mean, even as like a non like Space Marine type player, I can appreciate them. I mean, I really think like if you like Halo and you like video games of that type of nature, where you're like the super soldier. The Space Marines are awesome. I mean, there's enough in the lore too that you get to make your own chapter. You get to make your own like signifying. Like you can be just like everybody else. You can make an army that's like historical in the lore,
codex compliant,
or you can have some fun with it. Like
dabble.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that about them, and they're also like fairly easy to understand.
Very malleable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're kind of it's a very poor analogy, but they are kind of like, when you play a racing game, there's always a car, like Mario Kart. There's a car that you play in Mario Kart. That's the Mario Kart car you play because it's your first game.
Yeah, it's the Jetta and Need for Speed.
Yeah. And it is kind of a poor analogy because obviously you're not going to try a bunch of different armies before you play them. But the Marines, the Primaris, and the Firstborn kind of do occupy that like
starter kit level.
That nice starter kit level. You can kit them out as much as you want. You can change your play style as much as you want. They're just kind of
they have an answer for everything.
I mean, it is kind of the reason that when you go into a GW store, like when
they're like, oh, what's that big ass thing?
They've got a little thing of Space Marines, and then they've got some other bad guy. Yeah, it's so that way. Oh, you want to like learn the little starter game here? This is how it works.
Yeah,
and they teach you Space Marines because like they're easy to learn. They're straightforward. There's a lot of units, but there isn't a lot of units.
Everything's pretty straightforward as far as Adeptus Custodies.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very,
and I mean, they're super cool.
They are really cool.
You go watch the Astartes video and you're just like, damn, Space Marines are the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
So the other side of that kit is the Necrons, that Indominus box. Now the Indominus box, as an old player, as an older player, as a seasoned player, I guess is the way to say that, is a really, really good deal. You get 2 very amazing armies. You get the starter book.
One of the best deals that they've ever.
I think it's the best. I think it's like it's almost 1,000 points on each side. It's the rule book
next to the Apocalypse Tyranid box.
The
Apocalypse Tyranid box was the best bang for your buck.
Yeah,
somebody math hammered it out, and like it's the easiest way to build a Necron army is just to buy the Indominus box over and over again.
Plus they're all new sculpts. Like you can't go wrong.
Oh my god, the new Necron sculpts are beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So
and that's Necrons. The other cool.
Yeah, Necrons. So one of the things that I kind of want to get out of the way right up top, and this has been memeified to death, but a lot of times like, especially if a parent approaches you as a seasoned player and goes, I want to get my kids into Warhammer 40k, who are the good guys? There aren't any.
The real answer is don't do that to your kid.
Yeah. Don't get your kid in Warhammer.
No, do it. They'll never have money for drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Unattended children will be given a Red Bull and taught to play Warhammer 40k. But yeah, there isn't really a good guy in a lot of this. And as we start to break down the lore and talk about stuff, that'll become super, super obvious.
But humanity first, always.
Yeah, but the way that the recent models have kind of been published does make the Space Marines look like the good guy.
They're not.
But it is very important to kind of note, and I do want to note it up top, like everybody in the Warhammer 40k is essentially a genocidal maniac.
Yeah.
So the Necrons are the other side of that Indominus box. From a flavor perspective, think of the Necrons as like the Egyptians. These are your undead
Egyptian space robots.
Yeah, Egyptian space robots.
Space robot mummies.
Yeah, space robot mummies. Now, having run the Indominus set at local stores to get people the demo, to teach people the game, I've always played the Necron side because usually new players want to play with the pretty
The shiny toys.
Ultramarines. Yeah, exactly.
The dude with the halo and the fiery wings and shit.
Yeah, and I can definitely tell you that the Necrons hit real hard. They've got some really good close combat units now. They've got something called Reanimation Protocol, so even when they die, sometimes they don't die, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you do kind of have to play more a field hold game with the Necrons, and we'll get into probably the very end of this episode. We'll talk about how the game has changed specifically in 9th edition, because that's important to note as you play the game. It's not necessarily straightforward elimination anymore. Is essentially
right.
what I'm talking about,
Eighth was all about beating the hammer against the anvil and seeing who wins.
It was so good.
9 is about being both the hammer and the anvil
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Instead of beating one against the other, you got to pretend that you're both.
That's a good way to put it.
So
Instead of who swung first, it's more like a
no, keep going.
I was
Keep
gonna say, like,
sorry.
in the previous editions, it was a lot about Alpha Strike, who swings first, and now it's more like, how can you tactically outlast your opponent?
Who's
while
left
still
standing afterwards?
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you see Necrons?
Yeah,
right
so
now?
Necrons, I feel like like in the Terminator movies, you got the T-1000, right? That's
Yep.
In
that's
the
Arnie.
intro,
That's
where they're
Arnie,
just-
right?
T100, T1000 is the liquid metal one. T800 is Arnold.
Oh, Arnie.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. The T-800. Yeah. So like you guys, you haven't seen Terminator, fucking watch a movie.
Dude, it's a classic.
Watch a movie.
God damn it. All right. So yeah, like you see
Spoiler
Arnie,
alert, this movie was released 25 years ago. No, keep going.
But you see the robotic skeleton walking across like skulls of the dead dead humans and whatnot.
And it's very deliberate.
yeah,
and slow.
very slow, very like you can't stop it. It's unstoppable. That is what I feel Necrons are on the tabletop. Lore wise, they're very slow. They're moving. Well, I mean, they have some fast units, but I mean, you think of the T-800. Think of Arnie's. You're running a field of Arnie's. It's pretty gnarly.
Oh yeah, it definitely
and scary.
Yeah, I actually really love the Necrons because they have a very Egyptian theme. Like they have like pharaohs, or what do they call them? Pharaons. Yeah, like
Is it really pharaons?
Yeah, it's pharaohs.
they have what are the pyramids called?
Monoliths.
They have monoliths,
they
which
have
are
obelisks.
these giant floating pyramids. Like they're very like, if you could imagine like a Gothic Egyptian, that's very much what they are. And I love that theme. And like they have like they have the robots themselves, which are the Necrons, and then they also have like cryptex, which are like little spider dudes. And they have scarabs, which are little tiny robots that like jump into your brain, and like they
Like
use
the
like
mummy.
Yeah,
use-
it's literally like the little
Oh, is it
beetles,
really?
but they're little robots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
Yeah.
in
And
the
they'll-
lore?
they'll
Yeah.
like tear your flesh off. It's
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh yeah, dude.
They'll
The
crawl
scarabs
inside
are
you and tear
nasty.
you up from the
Oh my
inside.
God.
It's bad.
they
That's
have
great.
Gauss weapons, which I've always loved. The
Yeah.
idea of.
Gauss flares, which just like, oh, I'm gonna shoot this lightning at you and take you apart.
Disintegrate you on a molecular level.
Yeah.
And I mean, another crazy thing is Ryan mentioned it earlier, the reanimation protocol. So not only is it a horde of very hard to kill, death dealing robots with super OP weaponry, and then you shoot them and they just get back up
Yeah,
afterwards.
they just
Like,
keep coming.
They just keep coming. And in the end, like imagine from my army's perspective with a guardsman, like, oh, pew pew pew. Oh, we lost half our army. Half their army got back up. That's not good. It kind of goes with their like very existential, like death is coming for you.
Yep.
feel.
Yeah, slowly
And it's really
creeping.
cool. I
across
mean,
the field.
and the Egyptian thing is actually really cool. It's one of the underrepresented kind of aesthetics
Yes.
across sci-fi. Like Stargate does it, and
Yep.
but it's the only theme that they've milked.
And it's
That's
badass.
true, yeah.
And
I
it-
love that.
but
about
it's super
Stargate.
cool. Oh yeah. Everything about the way they tie in the Egyptian theme into
Dude,
the
yeah, I love
Stargate,
it.
totally.
Necron.
Oh yeah, you
playing on
guys are gonna like the way. If this is how you guys feel about this stuff, you're gonna like the way how I'm writing my Exodite lore right now.
Hell yeah.
I'm-
Well, my Exodites, for those of you who have seen them online, are very Egyptian colored. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and before we
And,
move on from the Necrons, I was going to say, we can't forget about the Silent King. So basically, the Necrons got their Primarch. So, like, their big bad.
yeah.
Yeah,
Essentially,
their
he
leader.
is- He is kind of like their
Yeah, yeah, so,
villain.
like,
They
you know-
have an enslaved Catan.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
They have
Oh yeah,
It's got
instant
a-
I mean,
got a-
that's another
got a
really
couple.
cool thing. They have the ability to unleash these like crazy super weapons, which are actually shards of gods that they shatter.
Yeah. So the
Or not gods, but almost god level beings.
Yeah, the Necron are masters of the material universe in the way that the Eldar are the masters of the Immaterium universe. Not the Eldar. I'm sorry. The Necron have, just to give you guys kind of a little bit of a lore spice here. The Necron have a device. I think it's called like the Crucible of Worlds or something, and it's this map of the entire galaxy. And a Necron Lord can just reach in, like think of like a holographic map, right? And he just reaches in and snuffs out a planet. And that planet in the real galaxy just vanishes.
What a dick.
They don't use it. Like it's one of those things like you have it and you don't use it. But yeah, we'll get into
And that's any planet. Like they could just Terra out of existence.
Yeah, essentially. The Necrons, like in lore, there's a lot of in lore versus in game. I'm sure you guys will hear us talk about it a lot. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff in Necron lore. I think it's really important to kind of note, just really quickly, just like with the Space Marines, there are definitely different dynasties of the Necrons. So there's different play styles, there's different ways you can build it. And not to necessarily we're gonna really quickly just jump back into Space Marines because there's a couple of specializations inside there that are worth mentioning kind of aside. And there's one, and that's the Grey Knights. So and kind of the Death Watch, but the Death Watch is a little bit more from a lore perspective. The Grey Knights actually play a little bit differently from just standard Space Marines.
And
I would almost say they're quite a
separate
bit
than-
different.
They're a lot different.
They're actually separate from Adeptus Astartes, though.
Right, but they are listed from a, like, when you walk in to shop, the Grey Knights are put into the Space Marine bucket.
They're on the same
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah, but that's
area.
like saying the Adeptus Custodes are.
Right. Well, the Custodies have their own.
They've got
That's the thing.
Next to
The
it.
Grey Knights are organized under Space Marines. The Custodies are organized under Armies of the Imperium. It's that's why I feel like it was worth bringing up.
Yeah, I mean,
So there are the
Death
Grey
Watch-
Knights.
Yeah,
the Grey Knights and kind of the Death Watch
Nah,
play.
they rolled them into Adeptus Astartes now.
That's true. They do just play
yeah.
like.
They used to have their own
but so-
codex. No.
Yeah. So
I thought they gave you a codex and
We're
then took it
supplement.
away.
Yep. Now we
Yep.
just have a supplement.
and that could be what's happening with Grey Knights and Ninth. But
Yep,
as far
100%.
as Grey Knights currently, before anything's been released, Grey Knights kind of they hit really, really hard. They deploy in very, very small forces, and they have very crazy weapons. They're a very specialized way of playing. Space
Very
Marines.
elite heavy.
They're called an elite army.
Yeah.
I mean, Space Marines are already elite, compared to normal humans, and then you want to take the best of those, make them all Jedi, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's
And
an
as-
army of Jedi. if
And
you
as
wanna put it
the
that way.
and as the Xenos player, or one of the big Xenos players at the table, I have Grey Knights. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, so that's it. I mean, I think that sums up Space Marines and Necron pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say.
So let's jump into the other armies of the Imperium. So off the top, we have the Adepta Sororitas. So they are the Sisters of Battle. They're kind of a fan favorite. There was a lot of demand from like 3rd edition on that they got a plastic line.
Yep.
The sculpts again look amazing.
Beautiful.
Very, very difficult not to buy an Adepta Sororitas army. Specifically because I knew that if I painted one up, my fiance would go nuts and love them all. But I think play style wise, they're kind of somewhere between Space Marines and Imperial Guard.
Yeah, I would say so.
They're a gun line. They're
They're
all
a gun
about
line
shooting.
army. Okay, yeah,
they're
all
a
about
gun
shooting.
line, but
I was
they
gonna say
have-
you guys have fought against them a lot, so
Yeah.
so
They
everybody
have
else at the
melee
table is going to be a
they
little bit
they
better.
have some substantial melee threats. I'd feel like it's a special weapons focused gun line.
Yeah.
It's
They-
not about like their basic troopers. It's about what their
Well, and
special people do.
and they've got miracles too. Maybe Mark, you can.
Yeah,
I
well, I was
think
going to
Mark
say
can touch on
Tom
that.
actually said it really well. They are a mix between Imperial Guard and Adeptus Astartes. They do have like a special mechanic that no other army has called Miracle Dice, and basically you have different ways of you roll dice at the beginning of your turn, or it's different parts, different phases of the game, and you can basically save those dice in a little bank, put them in your pocket, save them for later. So like if you need to do a heavy amount of damage in order to destroy something, you can pull out. Oh, I rolled this 6 at the beginning of my turn. I can use this 6 and blow up your grot tank.
So what you're telling me is buy Adepta Sororitas.
Don't do it.
Perfect.
Yes.
Don't
They are really cool. They have some really kooky dynamics, that miracle dice,
Yep.
you know. But you know, like at the end of the day, they are very much a shooty army. That's
and
what
squishy.
they bank on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And an aesthetics based army.
Think of them as like a hard shell, hard candy coating
Cool.
with a very sweet but soft center.
Any
I
any
see that.
any final thoughts on the sisters?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I know this is I should probably hold it back, but to me personally, it's a little bit of a feels bad army
Okay.
because those miracle dice they can hurt you. They can hurt your feelings.
I definitely though, like when I've been in a situation, and I don't know about you guys, but I kind of find myself in this situation a couple of times a month where I'm at a game store and somebody does ask me about starting armies. I usually do direct people to Sisters of Battle, or Space Marines right off the bat.
They are definitely a really hard army. So
I actually
they're
feel like I would
very-
the opposite. I wouldn't send them towards
Yeah,
something
they-
with like those kind of specialized niche.
Yeah,
units.
I think it might also be the people that approach me, because usually people approach me and they're like, "Hey, man, you know, I've been looking at playing this type of army," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, you want to
Oh
play?
yeah.
If you want to play Imperial and you don't want to be a Space Marine, here are the other options."
Yeah,
Okay,
totally.
Yeah, that I could get. But I would say ultimately, like, I actually really like them for the fact that they were never a army that you could buy.
Yeah.
They were very expensive. You had to
Yeah,
buy
dude, they
custom
were
models
all
for 'em.
metal.
And then they released them and they're new. And I'm
Yep.
like, that's awesome.
Oh,
I love
totally.
that. I'm like, I'm happy that there's a new thing to shoot at.
I'm
you know?
I'm happy that they're around.
I always
And,
love new armies.
Whenever I think about them, I always think about them as a very fluffy army.
yeah.
100%.
Like Imperial Guard is super fluffy. The way Tom plays his Tau is super fluffy.
Yeah.
But Sisters of Battle, by their nature, are fluffy.
Oh,
they
totally.
are religious zealots, and
Yeah.
if you get them, you are fully acknowledging the fact that your army is here to cleanse and purify.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. So yeah, rolling right along, we're going to talk about the Adeptus Custodies next. So in lore, the Adeptus Custodies are the personal Praetorian's the word, right?
Praetorian.
Praetorian Guard of the Emperor. They are kind of, you know, they're an elite army. They hit hard. You're going to be fielding a very small number of units. And a lot of the reason for that is, you know, from a lore perspective, they're bigger and better than Space Marines. They're bigger and better than Primaris Space Marines. The Custodies are the top level of gene editing that existed in the Imperium before the
If
fall.
I remember right,
of the
they're
Emperor.
almost on par with Primarchs, if
Yes.
not
Close,
stronger.
close.
In
They're
some
close.
Certain
They're
ones
close.
could be
Yeah.
better in
They're
duelists.
about a
than-
foot shorter.
Yeah, they're about a foot shorter.
But like
yeah,
martial prowess,
Yeah.
wise, some of
I've
them
got-
can measure up to Primarchs.
I've got a couple of buddies who play Custodies, and Custodies are definitely like, if you know what you're doing and you hit with them right, it's over. But
Oh yeah.
with the way that Ninth goes, Custodian, you know, a small unit army may not be the best case. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, Custodies, the Golden Boys. They are probably one of the more cheaper armies that you can field.
Well, yeah, you only
uh,
need like 5 units. and
Yeah,
you're good to
right.
go.
No kidding.
I mean, those 5 units cost you $500, but
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's
they're-
better than trying to buy 200 guardsmen.
yeah, for $500.
which cost
Like
you $400. No.
But yeah, they're it's Ryan pretty much summed it up perfectly. They are very, very strong army. They're hard to crack. When you roll those ones, it really hurts you.
Yeah.
They're a very 2-up reroll ones heavy army. But I mean, I don't want to, you know, time this out. You know, things change.
Yeah.
But they are a very powerful army. They are very, very, very gnarly. Yes.
I, shockingly, which might surprise all of you, absolutely love them.
Yeah,
I-
they're pretty
see why
damn
not.
cool.
I think that they are, if you're going to get into humans and you're going to get into as close as you can come, like genetically, to what the Grimdark universe is, like as far as the monsters you fight, they are the ones to do it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
Space Marines, like, yeah, Space Marines are badass and they can fight Tyranids and stuff like that and other factions that we're going to go over. But Custodes are the ones that you don't mess with. Like those guys will just jack you up and they use really badass weapons.
Oh,
That's
I
like the
love their
main thing I
weapons.
like about them.
I
Count-
love their
counterpoint.
weapons.
Grey Knights. No.
Yeah, well, I mean, Grey
I'm just-
Knights very similarly.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Yeah.
Custodes, like Grey Knights are silver, man. Custodes is gold, baby.
I just had to be like
yeah.
counterpoint. No,
Custodes are really badass. Their little like Eagle jet bike thing that they
Oh,
ride
yeah, I
is
love
one
that
of the
unit.
coolest units in 40k. And then not to mention they're riding it with like a halberd in one hand, but that halberd is also a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's-
that axe
So they're
is
just-
also a gun.
they're just
and
like-
that sword is
They're just
also
hover biking around the battlefield, DACA on everything, and
Yep.
then hold up, let me stab this guy too. It's very much like the cavalry charge.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're the
It's-
Golden Knights, baby.
They
Like,
are. And there's so few of them, but they're just so powerful.
I like them.
And I've never personally fought against them on the tabletop. I'd be curious because
Oh,
it's
it
almost
hurts.
the polar
They
opposite.
killed my
of
squiggy
my
Oh, it
and
hurts,
army.
man.
I have a million shitty boys,
Yep.
and you've got like 5 really, really good boys.
Yeah,
If
I
they kill
played.
Squiggy. I don't like him.
I
If you kill
played.
Squiggy, I don't like you.
Yeah,
I've killed Squiggy.
I don't like you.
I played against.
I
I
thought
played
you
against my
loved
buddy
me.
Brennan in 8th, and oh my god, it hurt.
But that was 8th, and the game's changed a little bit.
I can't see. I mean, with how Tower in 8th versus how Taweth are in 9, I can't see it not hurting more. Less now.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so next on the list is the Adaptus Mechanicus. I actually, from a flavor and like aesthetics point, absolutely love the Adaptus Mechanicus. However, up front, up top here, I'm gonna say Adaptus Mechanicus exists, and there really should be a Dark Mechanicus army as well. And there isn't currently. There isn't a model line currently, and there isn't a book currently, but there are a lot of us like myself who play Dark Mech, and you guys will hear more about this later. But I play Skaven Mech, so I actually did I did a Dark Mech army, but I'm doing a conversion with a bunch of Skaven parts because I love the Skaven from Fantasy Battle line, Age of Sigmar line. But yeah, the Mechanicus are a very well-rounded shooty army that can also punch you in the nose super hard. They are probably, I'd say, mid to upper right now in 9th. A lot that can hold the field, a lot that can do stuff if you field them right. They also are one of the lines that has a lot of choices when you're looking on the shelf. So there's a lot of different ways to play the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah, the AdMech. They're the cyborg humans.
Yeah.
they're the ones. They're the mechanics that also have guns.
Yep.
But
The flesh is weak. We must replace
exactly,
it. Yeah.
exactly. They're fun. You know, they got little hooded sniper rifles and crazy little like. I run really fast because I have robotic 8-foot legs that launch me across the table. They're cool. I'm not a big fan of the like steampunk aesthetic, but if you like that, man, that's all you, baby.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on that. I absolutely hate them. I hate them because they're steampunk. I mean, they are literally like, if you want to go, if you like AdMech, that's awesome. I'm not knocking you. I personally hate them, but that's because they are so not my aesthetic. They are steampunk from Mars. And they're like, the second I said that, I know there's someone out there listening to this that's like, oh my God, that's
fucking awesome.
badass.
Yeah, exactly.
Steampunk from Mars.
But there's also somebody at the table that's like, fuck you, diesel punk from Mars.
and they are not
Yeah,
diesel punk, and I will
they are
fight
totally diesel
you. I
punk.
will fight you.
They are not
steampunk.
steampunk aesthetic to me, and I'm gonna say this right now and we're gonna lose like 70
There goes
fans.
all our followers.
But I absolutely hate steampunk as an aesthetic because
I hate it. I hate it.
steampunk to me, because like I'm a big cyberpunk fan, which at some point we'll sidecast and talk
Well, I'm
about
a huge
other
diesel
words.
punk fan.
Adaptus Mechanicus are diesel
They
punk.
are
They're
so not
hold-
diesel
hold-
punk. Orcs
I
are
like
diesel
all
punk.
three.
Hell yes.
Orcs
Hell
are
yes.
diesel punk.
Hell yes.
I'm staring.
orcs-
I'm staring
orcs
knives
are
at you
gas-
right
Orcs
now.
are post-apocalyptic.
straight
Yeah.
up diesel punk.
I think they're more apocalypse punk or whatever.
Yeah,
you
orcs
wanna
are
call it.
apocalypse
That's what
punk.
diesel
Mad Max.
punk is. Like,
No,
No,
diesel
diesel
punk
punk
is like
is
World War II, like World War II aesthetic.
diesel punk is Mad Max.
Steampunk is
we've derailed a little
Victorian.
bit.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just anyway. Like
We can chop
In
this
in
up.
the for
good for listeners.
for the no
Like, fight,
it's all
fight,
this is all
fight.
good.
Yeah, I
This
was
is
like,
all
I
good
will
stuff.
fight
This is
you.
all good stuff. From a how Mars is supposed to be played, I do agree with you. The whole like everything is supposed to be bronze and red. That is
and like their
steampunk.
flyers have wings like that. They look like the Leonardo da Vinci. Like, come on, man. Like,
I don't like their flyers, but
they have a hovercraft. Like
that looks like a Higgins boat.
They're Dune,
but
they're Dune crawler with all the crazy like spider legs and like the fucking cybernetic horses.
Straight up looks like the spider from Wild Wild West, which was steam powered.
Which was also bad.
I was like, that's a fair point.
we gotta move on, guys. We definitely have to move on.
I'm just saying, AdMech are really cool. AdMech are cool. Like, I can respect them, but just for me aesthetically, like, I'm not a steampunk fan, and I think anybody that's into steampunk or anybody that's into like technology and being like, oh, the Omnissiah, like, that's cool, but it's not for me.
But my ratty boys.
Oh, I love
love
Rat Mech. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love everything AdMech. I love it, and I for all the reasons that Tom hates it. I like steampunk. I like the diesel punk aesthetic. I'd say they're both.
I'm
There's
dying on
That's
the
probably
hill
fair.
that they're
That's
not
probably fair
steampunk
argument.
Because there's a lot of brass work and things like that
Right.
that go with the aesthetics of the Mechanicus, but at the same time, they're not using like this. They're nothing they use is steam powered. It's all fusion powered and bullshit like that. So it's hard to say that they're steampunk. when
Yeah,
they're
but obviously, you know,
not
40k is
using-
not going to be.
It's from an
Right.
aesthetic standpoint, the army on shelf that can most easily be turned into that like Victorian steampunk style is AdMech.
Right.
I definitely see Tom's point. I'm drawing a line in the sand because I like Rat Mech.
Right.
So next on our list is the Astra Militarum. So you guys have heard us refer to the Imperial Guard before, and you'll hear us refer to the Imperial Guard again. But they are technically the Astra Militarum.
Who that?
Who dat? So
Astra Miller, what? You in the guard?
Hey, you in the guard, boy. So the Astra Militarum covers a very, very wide range of different aesthetics that you can play. My personal favorite are the Catachan. I've always loved them. It's fucking super awesome. And like, it's very much late 1990s pulp action film. I mean, one of the characters' names is Sly Marbo.
Sly
Marbo.
Yeah,
Sly
which
Marbo.
was just literally Sylvester Stallone,
Yep.
Sly, and then Marbo is just a rearrangement of Rambo.
And
And
he's
then
a
like
badass.
yeah,
he
yeah.
is.
And they come from a world that's basically covered in xenomorphs from the Alien franchise and predators from the Predator franchise that are
It's a whole
trying to
world
murder
of
them.
Australian jungle
Yeah.
nonsense.
And that's just like 10% of them. That's
Oh,
just a
if that.
percentage.
yeah.
It's
Well,
just
I
a
mean, most of them
percentage.
don't make it past like their 8th birthday.
Yeah. Like, only 10% live to be old.
No.
enough to
I mean, I'm
fight.
saying that's
There's a
Catachan.
lot.
Oh yeah, no,
There's
that's
more out
literally just
Well,
Catachan.
for
yeah.
every Imperial world, there is a regiment
Yeah.
of guard to go with it. So there's untold billions of them.
Yeah.
And lots of different play styles. Again, you can definitely get your heavy mechanized play style or your heavy infantry horde play style
They're
through
humans.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Plain
gonna
and
say,
simple.
like, yeah,
They're humans.
They're the humans of 40k. They're plain and simple. They're badass. Everybody loves them. If you don't like Imperial Guard, then shame on you.
Yeah, and out of
Whether
I'd
it's shooting them or playing them.
put 3 factions in the good guy pool if you were to really press me, and it would be Astra Militarum, Tau, and Eldar.
They're just trying to live.
Just trying to survive, man.
Yeah. Tom?
No, Imperial Guard, man. Like I said, they're just humans. That they're if you want to get into like Kevin and I were talking about it earlier today, you find that most people that play Imperial Guard they stay with Imperial Guard.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Imperial Guard
the-
players so fun.
they're the Imperial Guard players. Like if you're an Imperial Guard player, you know it. Like
Yep.
the second you look at them and you're like, dude, that tank looks dope. Dude, that artillery though, you're an Imperial Guardsman.
Oh yeah, and you're stuck there for life.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's an unspoken again, just like Adaptus Mechanicus. There's an unspoken. There's the heretic guard as well.
Right, renegades and traitors.
Same book, same rules, same play style.
Yeah, there's people they do conversions and
Yeah.
they convert their normal Imperial Guardsmen into Rogue Guardsmen, and then with the Psychic Awakening book, it gave you the ability to custom regiment, which then let people mix and match a couple traits that actually fluff well with being renegades and
Yeah.
traitors.
Gives you all the freedom in the world.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things. It should have its own book, and it doesn't. But
It
we
should
just
just
felt
like
we
Dark
wanted to
Mech.
mention
It,
Yeah.
it doesn't, but actually, Imperial Guard is one of those ones where I would almost recommend it to people,
Right?
yeah.
mostly just because you can draw the real world military parallel
Mhm.
from whatever, how it's used, directly to an Imperial Guard unit.
Yeah,
100%.
and if you like the World War II aesthetic,
Oh yeah, and anybody who's just like a military history fan can find something that they will like about the Guard.
yeah,
because there's so many different ways to play them.
Catachan is Vietnam. Festorian Firstborn
Is very Prussian.
Yeah, the Cadians, which are very
World War II kind of.
They're the
line
straight
infantry.
up horde army of the Imperium.
Yep, the horde army, and that's a good. We've mentioned gunline, we've mentioned walking tank, and we've mentioned elite, and we've mentioned horde,
and it's a horde army, but
drown
even
them in
though it's
bodies.
a horde army, you can also be a vehicle horde army.
Yep.
You can bring, I mean, points what's not factored in because points change with additions, but just by the rules, you can basically bring 9 tanks.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's a ridiculous amount of tanks for a 40k.
Steel Legion, baby.
Yep.
Any of them. But or you could bring 200 infantry. It's very however you want to play it. You can play Imperial Guard that way.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my personal favorite units, the Baneblade. It is
the big tank.
Think of the biggest tank you can think of, and then probably make it bigger.
Yep. Sounds about right.
And add more guns.
Yeah, doesn't it have like a barracks in it? Like it has like a sleeping quarters in it?
So depending on which lore source you read, I mean, there's multiple. It's a tank with rooms.
Yeah, they have
and
Baneblades.
And floors.
Yeah, there's like
It is
3 floors.
Oh, shit,
It's
really?
There's an ammo elevator similar to a World War II battleship
Oh, damn,
that
son.
moves the ammo from the ammo compartment upwards into the turret.
Damn, dude, the Baneblade's where I want to be. Shit. They
Oh,
got a
dude,
mess hall.
it's basically like that.
It's the mess
There's-
hall. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, that's where I want to be.
There's
Burrito Tuesdays, man.
there's several members of this crew. It's not like a normal crew where there's like 4 or 5 guys in it.
Right.
There's like 7 guys in a Baneblade.
That's dope.
And there's a tech priest. There's like an actual representative of the
He's
Mechanicus.
the
too.
nerd.
He's
Yeah.
the engineer. He
So-
sits in the engine room and tweaks with it.
So back in the day, little flash in the past, real quick. In 2nd edition, if you wanted to take a tank as a Space Marine, you had to take a tech priest for every tank you fielded.
Really?
Yeah.
That's actually kind of cool.
I like
It's
that.
kind of neat. So to move along with the idea of walking tanks, we're going to bring up the Imperial Knights. These are Tom's bad boys. Imperial Knights are pretty cool. I also have a knight household in work. This is another probably elite army,
It's actually
or maybe a
it's
monster
Titanic
army. Yeah, Titanic army.
It's
yeah.
considered a Titanic army.
Yeah. Very, very big play style on holding and shooting the crap out of everybody else. That's as much as I
biggest
got on
feet,
it.
biggest guns, biggest
Yep.
models, man.
Yeah,
That's- if
it
you-
is.
It's the big boys.
It is the ultimate form of elite army. You are not fielding more than 4 knights in most armies in games. It is very much. I love them for the fact that they are giant killy robots. Like they are piloted by one man, and that one man is the heraldry of the household. Like he comes from noble blood, and he pilots the knight suit. Like, and it's it's super pretentious. Like, and there's so many different variants of it. Like there's people who are sworn to the Mechanicus, there's people who are sworn to the Imperium, and all of that actually affects the playstyle of the knights because you gain special benefits from being either or. And they're also very old, and that's what I like about them the most is that they come from the age of strife. And we'll talk about that in various lore videos, but basically like the Imperial Knights are huge. I mean, they are 4 or 5 stories tall.
You like Pacific Rim, you probably like Imperial
Exactly, yeah. And they have their cannons that they have on an arm are what is on a tank, like they have giant chain swords, they're bomb and melee, they're awesome at shooting. Overall, they're just one of those armies where you're like, all right, I just want giant big dudes and I want to hit like a truck.
Yeah.
And that's what they are.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that they have different play styles because they're actually one of the only like factions. They've got their own book, and then they're in the Mechanicus book, and they're in Astra Militarum book.
Yeah,
so they actually have.
units.
Yeah,
No, they're not in any of mine.
They're in the 8th edition Astra Militarum book.
I have the 8th Codex. There's no knights.
There isn't?
No.
They're in the
I
Mechanicus
think so.
book.
Yeah, they're in the Mechanicus for sure.
They're
but-
definitely in the Mechanicus book. I thought they were in.
No, you can
Astra
feel
Militarum
the thing
too.
about Knights is
But
that
honestly, I bought that book because I was going to revive my army, and then I sold it to you. So that codex just sits on the shelf.
the thing about Knights is that they are, because they're such big units, like you're not normally taking them by themselves.
Yeah, they're usually with.
You're usually like supporting another army.
Yeah.
So you'll
And it's
have
because of the Imperium keyword, you can bring
Exactly.
them with Astra Militarum, but
Right.
they're not featured in our codex at all.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I've got my own Imperial Knights House
You
Lore.
could also go
House
Chaos
Lore.
also.
Yeah,
I
you
was
can
gonna
also
say
do
there
Chaos
is
Knights.
Chaos Knights too.
We'll get to them in a hot minute. But yeah, I've got and my lore and Tom's lore are very different from each other, and we're both Imperial Knight houses too. So it's there's lots of different play styles, lots of different ideas for that. Yeah. Anybody else? We good? Move on to the
I mean, Knights are
Inquisition?
cool. It's my little.
Oh yeah, you
tidbit
got
is
some Knights too.
Knights. Yeah, I've got a couple Knights, and I've worked it into my personal lore, which we'll get into later. But it actually reaches all the way back to what a Knight mechanically was originally built for.
Yep.
Which there's a whole huge backstory, and if you want to specifically get into that, you can look that up in depth on its own.
Real quick, for new players getting into it, Knights are one of the cheaper armies to build because the Knight
Primaris
models
Custodies.
themselves are about $120 each.
Yeah.
Which
and they
sounds
also,
like it would be the most expensive army to
But you're
build,
buying
but then
4.
you only need 4.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now that may sound like a lot. Still, it's not.
Yep.
But the other aspect too is that one, I love building them. I think building them is actually very fun, very straightforward, and painting them, that's where the fun is because they're so big and they have like such big surfaces to paint on.
You can
They're-
draw cool pictures on them.
If you're just getting into 40k and you want to build a model, buying a Knight is not a bad way to
Pretty
go.
solid.
Oh yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
you can use them; they resell very well.
Yeah.
You can
Oh,
use
yeah.
them with most armies.
Even if I hadn't planned on incorporating them into my army, I had planned on buying one just for my own build and
Yeah,
paint.
for your
Fun.
collection.
I just want to put it on a shelf because it looks badass.
Cool. All right, guys. So we're gonna move on to the Inquisition. Now the Inquisition is still a army of the Imperium on shelf and on website. However, they didn't have an updated codex in 8th, and we're not really sure where they sit in 9th.
They're just
so they're-
support units.
yeah, it's
basically.
kind of
Agents
just
of the Imperium.
Yeah, it's kind of just some support units that you can buy to mix into your
Any of the
working.
Imperial
Imperial army.
armies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
mostly just is Inquisitors and Assassins kind of thing, mostly,
For the
right?
most part.
Not quite. So the Inquisition, the Officio Assassinorum, and the Sisters of Silence are all listed under different listings of the armies of the Imperium. But currently, as far as 9th is concerned, they're all to be woven in. The units from those subsections are all to be woven into other armies.
Yeah,
basically.
I don't want to date us those parts talking about 9th. It was more of like, if
It
you
was
were gonna
all
choose,
all of 8th too. I mean,
yeah.
so I think the last we're talking about some old armies anyway, so we're gonna date ourselves anyway. I think the last time the Inquisition had its own book was the 7th edition, the Grey Hunters.
I don't even know.
Yeah, the Demon Hunters.
Demon
Codex.
Hunters, Demon Hunters Codex. But yeah, kind of historically, the members of the Officio Assassinorum have always been something you can weave into any Imperial army, and the Sisters of Silence go into pretty much the Adapta. I'm sorry, not the Adepta Sororitas, the Adaptus Custodies.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
The Sisters of Silence has some fucking dope lore too. But yeah,
the Golden Girls.
that kind of I'm gonna elbow the mic.
With pigtails.
So that
One of them has pigtails.
All about pigtails.
that
Handlebars?
kind of wraps it. Handlebar pigtails.
Yeah.
I pictured mustache. I just
Well, if you're into that, that's cool.
I just mixed two concepts that you don't normally mix in your head. Yeah, so let's move
That's
on.
cool, man.
That's
You
cool.
guys ready for me to move on to the armies of chaos?
Yeah,
Let's do it. All right. So the first army of chaos is the Chaos Demons.
Demons.
Which you can play on your own. You can pick one of the Chaos Lords or one of the Chaos Gods, excuse me, and then you can play their particular play style. So
very, very wide range of play.
Yeah, very
Like,
wide range.
yeah.
of
Like
play.
if you're going to get into daemons, then
Pretty much getting into all
good
four.
luck, because you're going to be getting into a lot of chaos stuff.
It,
like,
it could be kind of like the Imperial Guard players. Like you start demons and then you just keep getting more demons and then more demons.
The difference would be if you were a new player and asked me what you should play, and you said, I'm stuck between Imperial Guard and Chaos Demons, I'd be like, play Imperial Guard and then buy 5 or 6 other armies and then buy Chaos Demons. Right. Demons are kind of, they've got a place and they're very good, but you really have to know what you're doing.
You have to know what you're doing because they're
a very hard army to play.
Because they've got 4 different play styles right off the bat. You've got blood, you've got decay magic, you essentially have blood magic, you have battle,
sex magic.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, there is I don't even think we can do it justice as going into
definitely
it.
Can.
Yeah, definitely.
But like basically what you're going to take from that is like, as far as a chaos, as in chaos daemons go, it's a tip of an iceberg.
Yeah.
And if you are into magical like bullshittery and just crazy monsters coming out of hell,
play Eldar.
Get into demons. Yeah, get into it. But just
that's what they're all about.
Just understand that is a hell of a learning curve.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and be prepared for all kinds of weird words.
Yeah.
Oh right.
Like I said, with Imperial
Weird
Guard,
spellings.
you're like, oh, this is a tank. This is a heavy machine gun
This is
emplacement. This is an artillery.
the blood eater of skulls.
And then you're like, I don't know what a Doomfire Chariot does. Like, what is this nonsense?
What's a pink fury and why should that be scary?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also a blue one and a red
There's
one.
a blue
too. You're
fury
wait,
and
what's
there's
the
a red
difference
fury. Yeah,
between all this
exactly.
nonsense. Yeah. It's a lot to dump on your plate if you're new to the game.
Probably right off the top too. Probably should have said this before we actually jumped into chaos. So the Imperium, the guys we just talked about, the armies of the Imperium and the Space Marines, those are essentially the forces that fall under humanity's flag and the Emperor. The armies of chaos are the people in general who turned from the Emperor's light. So we're going to basically talk about we just talked about the bright and shiny armor version, and now we're talking about the not bright and shiny armor version.
And I just want to say, like, when we say, hey, don't start with this army, play whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah,
like,
if
honestly,
you want to play demons, play demons.
If you're coming from Age of Sigmar, demons is probably where you would start,
because you can literally bring the same demons.
Yeah.
It's the same kit for both sides.
Not only that, but the playstyle of Age of Sigmar and the playstyle of demons do match up pretty well.
Oh yeah, I would say they're basically the same.
Oh yeah,
is it the same codex?
No,
it's
it's weird. It's weird. The chaos stuff is the chaos demon stuff's all kind of weird. But anyway, let's jump into something a little more bite-sized and manageable, and that would be Chaos Knights. So we just we talked about Knights not that long ago. Chaos Knights are the opposite side.
They're Imperial Knights that have fallen away from households and turned traitor.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like the goth kids that drop pentagrams and everything.
Yeah.
If you want to know about them, just rewind like 10 minutes ago and put chaos in front of it.
Every time they're like, "Oh, these are honorable guys." These are
they do have a
slightly
different play style.
Yeah, they're very much more based on melee combat, and
More
they actually do have what the Imperial Knights don't. They do have psychic abilities.
Yeah.
So the Imperial Knights don't at all, and the Chaos Knights do. That's like their main difference.
And then, anything else on the Chaos Knights? I think we pretty. I mean, you listen to Imperial Knights, and then Chaos Knights are just the opposite side of the coin.
It goes for chaos in general, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most
So
of the chaos is just to flip the coin from the Imperial faction.
Kind of. So I'm actually. So we're going to talk about Chaos Space Marines now, and be mindful that they draw a line between Chaos Space Marines generic and then Death Guard and Thousand Sons, and that's because there's a lot of specialized rules for Death Guard and Thousand Sons, but Death Guard and Thousand Sons are part of Chaos Space Marines.
Right.
They're just hyper specialized, I guess.
They're just more specialized. So
they're worth getting their own rule set.
Yeah. So I play Word Bearers and Black Legion, which are just for lack of a better way of saying it, generic Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines play like Space Marines. We don't have 2 wounds, which kind of sucks.
That's bullshit.
But
Yourself, that can change.
we're pretty tanky, and we can just wade in and again, just like Chaos Knights, wade in. There's a little bit more on wading in and chainsawing it in the face. Or there's a little bit more on the just this horrible fiend has grown guns and is going to shoot a hellish amount of weaponry at you.
They got some awesome models.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome
yes.
Like if you like the idea of an evil
Heavy metal marines.
marine, like
they're
they got tentacles and they've got horns.
Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah, if
Well,
you
the
like
Emperor's-
sacrificing yourself for gaining power, these are all about that.
And then there's so we mentioned the Death Guard, which are the like undead decaying guys that don't die in the thousands.
Zombie marines.
Yeah, and the Thousand Sons, which are oddly enough your
So
Egyptian
slightly
Marines.
Egyptian themed.
But the other group that exists that has a very developed model line is the Emperor's Children with the Noise Marines, and those are so cool.
I don't know if they have a developed model line. I mean, they
They
only
just have that one.
Yeah.
No,
They're old school.
There's the sprues for buying the sonic weapons are out again.
Is it?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They're super awesome.
So
Noise Marines are basically one of the threads that ties Warhammer right back to the 80s.
Hell yeah.
and
It is-
heavy metal
It is
culture.
a platform wearing,
Hell yeah. I have that model.
like,
Yeah.
just-
Oh, dude, with the guitar. It's
Yeah, yeah.
awesome.
it's a
Mohawk.
platform wearing mohawk. There's a
Wielding fucking axe
Yeah.
playing
his
badass.
badass axe with a gun on the end of it.
yeah.
Spears. We got spears with guns. We got guitars with guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically Chaos Space Marines. I mean, they are the opposite side of Space Marines. You
Yep.
have a multiple flavor to it, but that's basically what they are. That's what they play like.
Yep.
You know.
So Xenos armies. We talked about the Craft World Eldari last time when we touched briefly on
I-feared
Exodites.
bastards.
So yeah, very the Eldar play. It's a lot about board manipulation and speed mixed with just very, very heavy hitting guns.
Some hit and run
They
tactic.
they
too.
play a lot like squishy space marines that are good at psychic powers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you
Yeah.
really like a speedy psychic power, very, very good at shooting, very good at melee, but they can't take a punch. That's the
Little-
that's the
little
army for
glass-
Their
you.
units are
little
also
glass cannony.
hyper-focused.
Yeah.
Their
There's
melee
something-
units are strictly melee units,
Yeah.
and their ranged units are strictly ranged units.
Yeah, there's something
Generally-
called Eldar trickery.
Yeah,
You're gonna hear that a lot.
generally speaking, the Eldar, the Orcs, and the Space Marines kind of end up filtering towards the top every edition. So it's something to kind of be mindful of. If you like the idea of elves, you like the idea of space elves.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I was like,
That was-
Eldar Space Elves.
Yep.
One of the first like lores that I thought was cool when I was in middle school, high school, first learning about this stuff was the Eldar. I was like, oh, it's an elven race. It's been around forever, but then they had this crazy tragic event, and now they're just decimated, trying to like regain what's left of their empire and hold on to it. And I thought that was really cool. The aesthetic was
Yeah.
cool. Everything about them is pretty cool. But yeah, if you're going to play them on tabletop, know that they're soft. They are
Yeah.
elves, and
Yeah.
the humans will beat the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
And,
need psychic powers as a good strong backbone.
They definitely rely heavily on magic.
And to kind of just roll a little bit outside of the punch here, just to kind of put all the Eldari stuff together. We're going to talk about the Harlequins real quick next. If speed is really your thing, if board manipulation and just moving is your thing, Harlequins is your army. It's going to really kind of amplify that speed that the craft world already has.
Yeah, killer space clowns.
Yeah,
They
and
still
they
have the psychic stuff,
Yeah.
movement shenanigans.
But
Yeah.
they're jumping
got-
Killer
all
space
over the
clowns.
place
Yeah.
and stabbing all your guys.
And I think aesthetically speaking, one of the things that drives people to Harlequins is that they are not focused on war, like aesthetically speaking. Like you look at a Space Marine, he's got a big gun, he's got armored for against bullets, and you look at like a Chaos Space Marine, or you look at any like a Necron, you look at those things and they're like, oh yeah, they're for war. You look at Harlequins and you're like, why the hell
Dudes
are
in
they wearing
tights.
pajamas? Yeah.
What is this jester looking dude?
Exactly.
Oh, why are my organs all on the
Yeah.
floor?
And what
Why is
the-
this bulge in my face?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what their thing is that their thing is turning art warfare into an art form.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're very much theatrical. They perform when they fight, So they kind of give this like little niche into the war. If you they're very like if you get into them, you get into them because you like that.
Yeah, killer space clowns.
yeah, and they've got some really cool lore. Then there's the Drukhari.
Dark Eldar.
Which are the Dark Eldar. The Dark Eldar have pretty much, they're kind of like three distinct play styles in one army.
Yeah.
The Dark Eldar are the Drukhari are very cool, and was one of my first favorite armies.
I don't
they're pretty
think
cool.
I don't think people focus enough on how bad they really are. Everybody talks about
Bad.
the Dark Eldar, and they're
Oh, you
like,
mean like bad
yeah,
guy?
yeah, like
Oh,
they're
they
like, oh
bad.
yeah, the Dark Eldar, man, they're pretty bad, and it's like,
No, they bad.
they are.
So
I would
awful.
actually
so that
wager to say they're almost a more bad guy than direct chaos.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
No.
chaos will corrupt you, steal your soul, and sacrifice you to a dark god. And then a Dark Eldar is going to do the same thing, but slowly and masturbate at the same time.
Yeah, on your
well,
face.
well,
Yeah,
here's
exactly.
here,
And make like a thing out of it.
here's the reason I say no. We, as the Black Legion, wanted to cast a spell, and we knew that we needed a certain amount of suffering in order to do that. We executed by slitting the throat of every single living creature on an entire planet to
Yes.
make a large enough pool of blood
Here's my
to
argument.
cast one
Is
spell.
the Dark Eldar would do the
Yeah, for
exact
fun.
same thing,
Not
and
for a
then
spell.
and then
man.
blood orgy,
and then they'd have an orgy on the
Yeah.
pile of bodies.
You think we didn't?
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that, that's all I'm saying.
The Drukhari
that's
are
an argument.
the Drukhari are chaos space elves.
They are. They are.
Yeah, I don't think people. I'm just saying they're great, but I don't think people give them enough on how bad they really are.
Yeah, so the Drukhari,
they're like, oh, they're bad guys. Yeah,
the
it's like-
Drukhari are drow. They're the dark space elves, and the through line to get to Beast's point is the fact that they know that their soul is going to be consumed by Slaanesh at some point. So in order to stave that off as long as possible, they suck other people's souls to slowly feed to Slaanesh in place of theirs, which is a horrible idea.
And they're not as like psychically. They don't do like psychic shenanigans. They're more of like they have those 3 different play styles of like being super fast. And
they're not as
melee
into psychic.
and very
stuff.
shooty, and then they can also be very like they have a lot of staying power.
Well,
depending on which-
why would you mind fuck somebody when you could actually fuck somebody?
and
exactly.
model wise, their models are fucking
Yeah,
beautiful.
Their models
models
look
are
super
amazing.
cool.
If you're into BDSM and stuff, like they're the models
that's
for you.
what's up.
Like,
One of my
Shit, right.
favorite things about them is that they have it looks like a little boat.
the
the Raider?
Raiders or Arcs or whatever they call them, Black Arcs and all that stuff.
Jabba's palace.
Yeah, it looks like
barges.
Jabba's little sand skiff,
Yeah, they
but
totally
it's got a bunch of like dudes hanging off the side with chains and hooks and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And Hellraiser.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I was like, very Hellraiser.
Cyberbrights or whatever they're called. To finish up on Eldari, the last faction is the Ynnari. So the Ynnari are kind of weird. The Ynnari allow you to mix units from Craft Worlds, Harlequin, and Drukhari together. And they add a lot more specialized psychic stuff in. And that's pretty much
it's a mixture of 3 armies.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. There's some lore reasons as to why the Ynnari exist. I picked up the Triumvirate of Yanid, which is their big unit mainstay. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have nothing else on Eldar, and I'm the big Eldar guy.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. So next we got Gene Stealer cults. Gene Stealer cults are a pretty specialized army.
There's no mutants in the Underhive.
They look pretty cool. They are definitely they're the Underhive army. They're
that's why I love them.
That's why our rat has 4 arms in the logo, guys.
Yeah, we had mentioned it. What was it? Episode 1, I think.
4-armed emperor.
No, but what?
What?
But no, we had mentioned that they're almost the translation of Skaven into 40k.
Right.
Yeah, kind of.
That just the way that their lore
From a flavors perspective.
Yeah, from a flavor perspective, there's a whole bunch of dudes. They're not necessarily very good, but they rebel from underneath.
Stop
the humans.
timing us. Like just because they're not good now doesn't mean they're not going to be good later.
No. I mean like individually. It's not.
They're
You
not-
don't know. Hey man,
They're not elite.
Neophytes could be really good in the future. You never know.
No, I think he means like from a lore perspective.
No, I know,
like the one
You never
single
know.
dude.
It's a bunch of-
Oh, I get
it's-
you. They
yeah,
could be
'cause it's a bunch
aberrants.
of-
Yeah,
It's all the peasantry basically
Yeah.
revolting.
Yeah,
dude. They've got a model that's a 3-armed, like somewhere between person and Gene Stealer.
holding a stop sign.
That's using a stop sign as
That's
a
what's up.
weapon. It's so
Yeah,
It's
badass.
super cool.
My favorite.
Yeah, they're a glass cannon mutant army. So like if you're looking for
That's cool.
something that's like a bunch of mutants and they're like miners, they have a very big miner aesthetic, like a workers like very Tom actually brought something up that was really awesome, which was Total Recall. They're very total recall.
Yeah.
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 Very
Kinda like
If you
bad.
Red
ever
Faction.
watched that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Red Faction. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
the Red Faction.
Space Skaven.
So if you like that, they're a glass cannon army for sure. That could change in the future, but for right now, they are a glass cannon. They are badass. I love them.
I
Yeah,
would
super
say
cool looking.
out of all of the 40k armies, no one plays like them.
Yeah, no,
They're
very,
super unique.
They're
Yes.
very unique. They're very tricky. But they have some really cool stuff. They
deep
have
strike
a
shenanigans.
lot of like putting stuff on the board without actually putting things on the board.
Putting something on the board and then it's somewhere else. Like,
that's
it's
called
pretty cool.
that's called the special rule where Mark wins.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, is this where
That's
Mark's
the
making
game.
up rules?
Yeah,
then?
it's
Yeah,
Mark
as we
wins.
play.
I win.
Yeah,
Yeah, playing now, I win.
That's
Got it.
probably the best key for anybody looking at an army is that one, you can team them up with Tyranids, which they are the only ones that can be
And
teamed
Imperial
up with
Guard.
Tyranids.
You can
And
kind of
Imperial
do
Guard.
And
Imperial
yeah,
Guard as
let's
well.
go.
But they're the only ones that can team up with Tyranids.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have their very own unique playstyle. I think that's one of
awesome.
their big sellers.
That's
Very
super.
unique play style.
Very
High-
hard to play.
High mobility as well,
Yeah.
Very hard to play.
So
I would say.
the next to touch on.
Tyranids,
So-
my favorite.
Yeah, so Tyranids are the, if you need a quick analogy, as we keep doing here, Tyranids are Zerg.
Yeah.
If you played StarCraft, Tyranids are Zerg.
Arachnids.
Yeah,
excuse me?
arachnids.
The
Yeah,
only
Starship
good bug
Troopers.
is a dead bug.
Yeah. It's a horde army. It's a horde army made of killer insects.
Not even really insects, just like monsters.
Yeah, insects is.
They call them
yeah.
bugs, but I mean,
Bugs, yeah.
they're fucking monsters.
They're more-
Insects-ish.
Yeah,
They're
like-
they're actually more crustacean-y.
Yeah, right.
I was gonna say like
That's
they're
good.
kind of a mix between like a crustacean and a lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool. Tyranid lore is pretty interesting. The Tyranid artwork is fucking amazing. The
love
models are so damn cool.
You want to
yeah.
play like the hungry bad guy, good
Yeah.
guy. Like I'm just trying to eat.
The ravenous swarm.
Yeah. And they're
Insatiable.
also one of the only armies that it's very difficult to like write or think of lorically, because like they are all Tyranids
It's meant to die.
are one entity known as the hive mind. There is no individuality. And there's kind of fake individuality, but there's no actual individuality.
Yeah, there's not like, oh, this is Tim.
Yeah,
right.
Tim the Tyranid.
Yeah, Tim. I don't know why I said
Timmy the
God. Tim the
Tyranid.
Tyranid.
Timmy the Tyranid.
Yeah, I know,
But
I mean,
that's,
but they are the benefit about them is that what you lose in individuality, you gain in swarm.
And
Yes.
a little bit
And-
of flavor. Like,
Yeah,
it's-
like if
there's some cool
that's
flavor
that's
there.
a very like it's one of those things where it's like I said with Imperial Guard. Like if you look at Imperial Guard and you're like, oh, I like that, you're an Imperial Guardsman. If you look at Tyranids, you know you're a Tyranid.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like you just look at them and you're like, oh, I want to do that.
if your favorite animal is a leafcutter ant, you'll probably like Tyranids.
Yeah.
Like that's their thing. They are the big hive.
And I feel like if you've been playing for more than 5 years, we all kind of sort of like eventually gravitate towards Tyranid.
Oh, because you just want to
Well,
play.
'cause
You want to
sometimes
play
you
Big
just,
Daddy.
you just want to run a bunch of bugs up the board and eat everything.
Yeah.
I want to paint up them cool ass models.
Yeah, like one they're very unique to paint because they're all organic. But the other aspect of them too is you can play them. They do have guns.
Yeah.
But like I'm sorry, but I think the funnest way to play them is just a giant mob
Oh, yeah.
that just eats
Endless
everything.
horde.
Just,
Yeah.
just like
just a swarm.
just swarming over
Yep.
things, like if you think
100%.
of Starship Troopers, you think, of like aliens,
Yep,
like
that's
coming
why I
down the
love
hallway.
zombie movies.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're into zombie movies, and like one, you could go for like Plague Marines, obviously, but
Yeah,
this
bunch of
also
fuckers.
like scratches that itch.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's why I love playing my buddy Patrick. He loves playing Horde. God damn, dude. Every time I play him.
Oh, those games are so sick, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, just a million.
They're fun.
Steelers.
It's one of those things where it's like, whenever I lose to a Tyranid army, I'm like, I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah, it was
you know?
fun. I got
It was
it,
that was
but
an
I killed a
epic
whole lot
battle.
of bugs.
Yeah, I killed a lot of you though.
It's that last stand mentality.
Yeah,
They're a
exactly.
good last
Yes.
stand mentality army. So the next are our fun guys, our orcs.
Funnest
Space. Yeah, space mushrooms. Orcs.
I hate orcs.
No, you don't. We both love orcs.
I fucking love orcs.
Orcs are kind of the natural foil to Space Marines. They don't shoot as well and they don't close combat quite as well. But what they don't do in those
But they
ways,
crump good as fuck.
they make up for in numbers. Orcs are always down to fight.
That crump. Dude.
Yeah, crumping.
That
We
crump pump.
crumping, we
They
winning.
got that crump pump.
Yeah. Teef is currency, not teeth. Teef.
With
with an F.
I like orcs. I hate anything to do with their spelling or speech.
Yeah,
And-
he
and-
hates orc speak.
And one of the things that I want to point out now is that thankfully our podcast only has 4 people in it because orcs can count to 4.
Oh,
They can get to 5, and then lots.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
lots.
Yeah.
A lot of you.
So little side question here. What do you think's smarter, an ogren or an orc?
Orc.
Ogren.
Yeah. So
Ogren.
orcs.
Ogren.
So
Because
orcs.
I think
orcs
ogren
have.
can basically only count to 4. As
I
well.
don't. I think the big change, and this is kind of a lore side, not a hobby side. I think the big difference between an ogren and an orc is an ogren has a level of mental capacity it can
Exactly.
reach. An orc going up against an ogren and knowing that it needs to be smarter than an ogren will become smarter than an ogren to win. That's how their
I
genetic
never seen
makeup
That's
no
works.
fair.
ogren build a damn spaceship and fly that shit into a planet.
We don't build
The orcs don't build
spaceships,
spaceship.
We find
The
spaceships.
Gretchens build the
All
spaceship.
right, hold on.
Technically, Gretchens are orcs,
Yes.
I thought it was a different species. Like
Nope.
No. That's all
okay.
same species. But
and they
they're all
eat
fungi.
orcs,
they all fungi.
and they eat orcs.
All right, no. But all right, but I never seen ogren build a thing that can fly out of a big ass rock and then crash it into a planet
ogren never
And then-
concern themselves
and-
with flying.
because they dumb.
And
They just
and
want to
there's a
smash. They're like orcs. They just want to crump things.
and there's a portal inside that asteroid because we need better supply lines in the
Yes.
war on Armageddon.
So, needless to say, orcs in the gaming side of things.
good
If
point.
you like orcs and you're looking at them and you think that their like trucks are really cool because they're made out of like mixed match pieces of metal,
Oh yeah,
and
if you-
going into like the diesel punk thing, like
You like
Yeah.
Mad Max?
Mad
you
Max
like Mad
thing.
Max, you like that, like orcs are that. Like
good.
If
Kinda
you
like
want,
what you're
if
saying
you
about
want a
kids.
kit bash, if you're going to come into the hobby wanting to build your own models, customize your own
Yeah.
models and kit bash,
Orcs is
orcs
where
is
it's
where you
at.
want to start.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of like
100%.
what
You can- you
you
can-
said though.
Yeah, you can kind of do it with you can kind of kit bash with any army. So
Yeah.
don't
There is
let
kit
me
bashing
don't let
definitely for
me
everybody.
don't let me dull your style. Don't let me dull your shine.
Yeah.
But if you want to jump in head first with just like I've never used plastic art before and I want to have fun, orcs are where you start
That's
kit
what's up.
bashing. Now, what were you gonna say, Mark? I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, you're good, man. I was just gonna say like it's kind of what Beast said earlier. Like if you see orcs and you're like,
that looks cool.
That's the army I want to play.
Yeah,
you're an
no
orc
doubt.
player.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those armies where you definitely know, like right off the bat, you
Yep.
look at them and you're like, all right, these are cool.
Yep.
Then
Right.
that's good.
They got
You know.
they got white and black checkered shoulder pads. I'm in.
Oh yeah,
You know,
no,
like-
they're
They
super
got
cool.
all that DACA,
yeah,
baby.
exactly.
right.
If-
all that,
if
all
you
that
like,
DACA and all that chocolate.
Another bringing it over to another Blizzard connection like we did with the Zerg. Like if you like in Warcraft, if you like the Goblin and their engineering, that's basically an entire faction built around those principles. Strap big guns and big rockets to it, and then send it at the bad guy.
I
Doesn't matter if it works.
I could explain it with science, but more boom boom equals more zoom zoom.
Red
100%.
ones go faster.
So we're gonna bring it in here with the youngest faction, the Tau Empire. So the Tau Empire are pretty cool.
Yeah,
Love 'em.
yeah.
Love them.
I'm a very big everything in Xenos is super neat. The only non-Xenos stuff I do is chaos in my night household. But I'm a weird duck. But Tau Empire is probably I'd rank as my number
Yeah,
2
cute.
favorite army. Again, if you love giant robots, you're gonna like Tau. Tau are another gunline army. Lots of shooty.
Very shooty.
Lots of board manipulation. And my first favorite faction, which isn't an official faction, but actually falls under the Tau, and that's the Kroot. But that's it for me for Tau. I love the giant robots and I love the shooting mechanics.
Yeah, you like Gundams, you'll like Tau.
Yeah, plays basically. The cool thing about Tau is that they have a very, very unique history. It's very brief, but it's very unique. They're based very much on samurai like aesthetics and like way of like Bushido, like that's their whole thing is like greater good and things like that. But the nice kind of cool like aspect to them is that they have an answer for a lot of things and it involves a gun. And that's what's really cool about them.
Overwhelming firepower.
Yeah, like they're not about wars of attrition. They don't hold lines. They don't do that. They get in. They get in, shoot the shit out of you, and then they bounce. And that's what they play like that. Like not so much right now, but like if you're getting into Tau, you're gonna look at them and go, "What the hell are these guys?"
You like DACA?
Yeah, but if you like if you like the fact of being a tactician, that's them. If you like tactics and you like outmaneuvering your opponent, and you like outmaneuvering your opponent, that's them.
Like, all you get is shooting and moving. That's it. So
they get some really cool flying, like some jets. They get some really cool flyers. All of their dudes have like jetpacks.
They have a dude that can literally fly across the board.
Yep.
Yeah, they've got shield drones that
drones
just they get shot at, and the drone's like, nah.
I think they're the only faction that has AI, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's weird lore debates as to whether or not machine spirits are actually technically AI, but yeah,
there is. But yeah, they specifically have AI.
Yeah.
Also,
it's called AI.
just from like an aesthetic or like a visual aspect, the thing that attracted me to them first was that they are they're what, like, when we think of the X-Files and we think of aliens, they look like that.
Oh yeah, the Tau totally look like aliens.
They totally look like our representations of like aliens, like the gray men with the black eyes. Like that's what Tau look like.
Like Eldar look like what we would traditionally believe like fantasy elves to look like.
Yeah.
Tyranids look, when you say like big giant alien bug thing from outside the rim of the galaxy, like you can basically put together what a Tyranid looks like in your head. Yeah. You say, a humanoid alien with advanced technology, you basically think of Tau.
Exactly.
The only thing that's unique basically to Tau, I would say, is like the hoof feet.
Yeah, they do have hoofs.
Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps it all up. Again, that's kind of an overview of where all the armies are, and kind of how we would talk to somebody who is new and kind of getting into the army or the game. I would say that my number one recommendation when people ask me is the Indominus box still, because it's still on shelves in several places. My follow-up to that is usually to talk about kind of how the last couple of editions of Warhammer 40k were kind of based on annihilation and board wiping, and 9th is a lot more about board control, board manipulation, and tactics. So usually my follow-up to that is how interested in this stuff are you going to be, and then kind of steer people towards stuff.
That's a good way. Let's go around the table on that one. So like, what you were saying is like, what we would say to a new player.
Yeah. My number one recommendation would be buy Indominus and either split it with a friend or make yourself 2 armies.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Well, I mean, first I would probably ask the person what they want to get out of the hobby. So like if they want to paint, they want to build, if they want to win, if they just want to create their own lore. So depending on how they answer will be kind of what I tell them. So if you want to build, look for something that's really cool about building. Like Tom was mentioning Imperial Knights. If you're looking to paint, Admech, they're pretty gnarly. Harlequins are pretty gnarly to paint. Pretty fun. If you're looking to win, check out what's the local meta. Check out, what are the top tier armies. You might have to change that up after a little while, but if that's what you're looking to do, I mean, that's do you, boo boo.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty important, and because we've mentioned meta a couple of times, but what Mark just hit's really important: local meta. The national meta and like the international meta could be totally different than.
And then we've got that Australian meta.
Yeah, yeah, and then last but not least, if you're just looking to build an army, build your narrative, build your lore, I think that's kind of where a lot of people come from. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people. I'd say, hey, open up a rule book, see what looks cool to you, and run with that. I don't care how hard it is to play the army; like you're gonna learn.
Yeah.
So build what you like, because guess what? That's what you're going to be stuck with for a long time, unless you plan to sell the army, which always sucks too. But yeah, I mean, pick what you love and stick with that, and it'll treat you right.
Yeah. I go by the golden 3. Whenever somebody asks me like, oh, I want to get into Warhammer, what should I look at? I go look up the history of Imperial Guard, Orcs, and Eldar. Look up those 3 histories, because that will lead you to the others. Because at some point, Imperial Guard has fought Necron. At some point, Orcs fought Tyranids. You know what I mean?
Like that's a pretty awesome place to start, actually.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like kind of like my vanilla. Is I'm like, if you want to get into the hobby, look up these three and read into their lore, and you're gonna find something that clicks.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say mine's more like it's a two sides of a coin. Is do you want to approach it from a fluffy side? Do you want to pick the army that you like the flavor of the most, or do you want to pick one based off like the texture, how it plays? So if somebody asked me like, oh, I like, you know, an artillery army, I'd be like, all right, play guard. They have all the artillery. Play guard on a really big table. You can hit the dude in the next room. Like, it's ridiculous, you know. Or if somebody's like, oh, I really like this theme or this style. Okay, well, here's the army, because there's so many of them. There is one that fits you. So like, if you're like, oh, I don't really know, you know, what I want, then kind of nail it down before you dive full on. Either one of those ways. Either 100%. go full fluff and build the army that you just want to build just cuz, or build the army that you want to play on the tabletop.
Yep.
And I that's kind of why I suggest Indominus a lot too. And because realistically, the Primaris side, you can tweak it.
You get a lot of bang for your buck out of that.
Yeah.
The other cool
Plus,
thing,
it's a really good value.
Like Space Marines have the benefit of you paint them blue. Now you're playing Ultramarines.
Yep.
You want to play them as
yellow.
You want to try out a different set of rules. Throw a slap of paint on there, and nobody's going to give you any gruff about it.
Yeah. You get that codex, and you get to kind of pick what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our little introduction to the different factions and kind of how to jump into the game.
Oh, one thing before we take off. If you buy a kit and then you change your mind, that is totally okay. As a new player, if you're like, oh, I built this squad and then I kind of changed my mind and I want to go a different direction, that's cool. Put them on a shelf and just save them as a, you know, maybe you'll get to that army later. Maybe your taste will change.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. There's collecting to play, and then there's just collecting, and a lot of us like to collect. I mean, there's
absolutely.
I own a Hive Tyrant because it looks cool.
Right, and like I said, I was going to build and paint a knight just to put it on my shelf.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Yeah, I want to buy like 12 more knights, not because I need them, but because
12 more goddamn knights.
Yeah, I want to put up a diorama.
I wanted to actually. It was a dumb idea, but it's at one point when I was kind of in my middling Warhammer hobby, I was like, I am going to make an entire Word Bearers Legion, and somebody was like, you're gonna buy 10,000 Marines, and I'm like, yes, and then like 5 days later I was like, no, that was dumb.
That was a terrible plan. Let's never say this again.
Adeptus Arbites just because they're cool.
Those things they're super
awesome.
cool looking. Yeah.
All right, guys, well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. We're definitely going to jump a little bit more into we're going to kind of alternate with this idea of doing like a lore episode or a couple of lore episodes and then a couple of hobby episodes, just to give you guys a better feel. We know that we're kind of skipping over a lot of the history and a lot of what makes the game kind of approachable, which is why we decided that we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the different factions as if you're coming to it new. We're going to jump into the storytelling side next, and then we're going to kind of try to hit you guys with just some knowledge to kind of round out that experience and help you get into the hobby if that's how you found us. We also want to hear from you guys, especially if you're experienced in the game and in the hobby. Please feel free to hit us with an email at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com. Under the Hive of Madness is the title of the podcast, so that's pretty easy to spell. But if you need spelling on Jim Dark Gaming, it is GYMDARKGAMING@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Jim Dark Gaming. We have a Facebook page and Facebook group, also Jim Dark Gaming, and we are on Twitter at Jim Dark. Want to connect with us a little bit more in person right now? Find us on Discord. There should be a link in the show notes of the episode.
Best way to really get in contact with us. We'd love people to join.
Yeah, like feedback and everything.
We love
I'm on
that.
there all day.
Yeah, we love that instant access. Just to let you guys know, we are hard at work getting our Patreon kind of figured out and launched. Hopefully we'll have some updates for you guys as that moves along. But yeah, pretty much our episode on the different factions and how to get into the hobby if you just walked into a store and you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and looking at all the beautiful
And saw Ryan.
And saw Ryan, ran away, and then found somebody much nicer.
Don't go to the big
Saw
tatted
Ryan
mohawk guy.
Saw Ryan and was like, I don't want to talk to that guy.
That guy, oh God, I don't even know these factions, but that guy definitely plays chaos. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Just remember, Forearmed Emperor.
What?